Greetings, comic friends. I have a special video for you today. Have here a copy of X-Men 1 that a customer had brought to me, and they wanted it to be clean pressed and sent off to be graded, because if you have this, why wouldn't you? And it's a good looking copy, right? I mean, you can see, some the cover whites are getting pretty cream here, but other than that, it's a really sharp looking copy. The question is, does it look a little bit too sharp? Is it does it look too good? Before my customer handed it off to me, uh, he had said that he he suspected that this book had been trimmed. So what does it mean that a book is trimmed? Well, for older books, it's very common to see a lot of wear around the edges. So when this wear really starts to show, what some people would do or still do do is slice off the very edge of the covers so it's a nice straight line. This, of course, is not good for you're altering the book. I mean, it is a valid form of restoration, but it does make it fall under the umbrella of a restored book. And sometimes it can be hard to catch, right? Because when someone restores a book, they don't like put a label on it that says, "Hey, this has been restored. Watch out." They who knows where it came from? Did someone do that in order to make it look good and sold it off as a non-restored copy, or was it known to be restored? I don't know. It, as far as I know, to the current holder of it, it wasn't sold that way, but he had come to suspect it sort of after the fact. So who knows? But that doesn't matter, right? The question is right now: is it a restored book? Does the current owner have a restored copy of X-Men 1? So there are some telling signs of a trimmed book, and I'm going to say right now, I cannot say with 100% certainty whether or not this is a trimmed book. I will say that I am fairly confident that it is, just by looking at all the clues, but I'm not going to say 100%. But when he handed it off to me and I looked at it, I'm like, oh yeah, it's at least highly suspect. And then I spent some more time with it and looking at it closer, and pretty sure it's trimmed. So what are the telling signs? From a high level, first of all, this is really straight, or it's really clean, right? In a book like this, you see some sort of issues. Like it looks too freshly cut, and even a really high grade book from the Silver Age, just normal time, not necessarily being mishandled, is going to soften those edges a little bit. And here you don't see that. It is incredibly straight. Um, Now there are some dings in it on the side. There are some imperfections. Let's see if I can kind of. So you can see, like right there, right? You see that little divot in there. You see, kind of. Get something to point with. You see, like right there. It's 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 missing a little bit right there. So you may look at that and say, well, there you go. There's proof. There's proof that it has not been trimmed, right? It hasn't. If it had been trimmed, then that certainly wouldn't be there. Well, actually, in this case, I feel that it's further proof that that it's been trimmed, because if you do trim, you obviously can only trim in so far, right? And you can see even now like how close that line is to the edge of the Comics Code Authority emblem there. Going in any closer, it's going to become way too obvious that it was trimmed. You're going to start cutting that off. So they can only go so far. So, you know, here you'd start cutting off Marvel Girl's fingers and things like that. So, to me, that's further proof that it's trimmed, because you have these imperfections, and everything else around these one little particular spots is completely sharp. Like, if it had something like this on it, you would see a lot more other things along it. Also, the only existing imperfections are on this side. You're not seeing any up at the top. You're not seeing it at the bottom, because this has a little more leeway of going in deeper on the top and bottom, because it's not fighting up against so close of the Comics Code stamp there. So at first glance, one might say, look, there are imperfections, therefore it clearly isn't trimmed. In my opinion, it's further proof that it actually is. The other test that I'm going to show, and this is it's pretty obvious looking at it in person, sort of straight down, is that the cuts aren't perfectly straight. You know, when you get a non-trimmed cover, you're gonna have straight line 90 degrees, straight line 90 degrees, and so on. It'll be perfectly rectangular. Even with a book that has a miscut cover, what is cut out itself is still rectangular. It just may kind of be the image on it. It may just be a little bit skewed, but the cut itself, right? A miscut cover isn't because there was a bad cut. It was because the paper went into the thing that cuts it a little bit crooked. The cut itself is still perfectly rectangular. But we can see that this is not the case. The way that I look at that is there's a reason why these cutting boards, or not cutting boards, but these protector boards have these nice lines on them, because all these squares are 90 degrees. So we can line this up. I'll line this up on the bottom perfectly straight, just because it's farther away from the camera and harder to see. And even now it might be tough to see. But with the bottom completely lined up, so the entire bottom is across a line, the spacing here is not the same as the spacing here. It's slight, and you probably can't see it all on camera just because of the angle and all that, but it's pretty obvious that this kind of goes upward at an angle. It's not perfectly flush, even though the bottom is. That's obviously problematic. The side is an even bigger offender of this, so we'll put this right up in the corner. And again, it's kind of hard to see on the camera, but this spacing here is not the same as this spacing down here. It goes out. Obviously, I'm being more drastic, but it goes out as it goes down. At a quick glance, you may not see that. The top and the bottom look fairly good compared to each other at a glance. I feel this side is visible by the eye if you're really looking at it, but just at a pass, you might not see it. So all these things put together, I feel pretty confident that sending this in for grading is going to end up with a restored grade because it is trimmed. Now, the other things I look at for determining if that's the case is you look for other signs of restoration, right? Because like if someone's trimmed it, then it's very possible that they did other forms of restoration. So you look for color touch-ups and things like that, but I didn't see any. So the way you look for color touch-ups is you have a black light, and color touch-ups will show because it's a different kind of ink than what is, and it's obviously newer than it is in the original printing, and color touch-ups will show up under black light. And a lot of color touch-ups you can see without a black light, but having the black light just kind of makes it easier. And I didn't see any color touch-ups, so I don't think it's color touched. But I mean, that doesn't mean that it wasn't trimmed. I'm guessing there was just a little bit of fraying on all around, and whoever did it said they wanted a cleaner looking copy. Maybe it was just for themselves. They wanted to be cleaner looking. Maybe, it was, they wanted to sell it and make it look better and pull one off on someone, maybe who they originally sold it to. They told it happened. That I don't know. But again, doesn't matter. What matters is what it is now in the current owner's hand. I can also see, and I'm not going to bother trying to show you on camera because there's no way it's going to show up, but looking straight down on it, on the bottom, I can see ever so slightly the interior page peeking out. Right? If anything, covers go longer than the interior page, not shorter than the interior page. So if the interior page I can kind of see, then it definitely is a sign of it being trimmed. So little things you got to look out for, especially on Silver Age books. Right? You don't really see this on bronze on up. Not to say that it's not possible, but Silver Age is where you'll really see it. And I'm guessing this happened a long time ago, when maybe it wasn't, collecting hadn't gotten so big. It was just, maybe it was just like this person had this book and they wanted it to look better, so they trimmed it. The idea of restoration devaluing the book wasn't as prevalent. Who knows? But it is something that we definitely have to look out for today. So when you get a nice book, if something looks too nice, definitely keep that in mind. And if you end up with a restored book in your hands, you bought it, you check if it's restored, you find that you didn't know it was restored, you check that if it is, and you find that it is, or you suspect that it is. It's not necessarily, the person that you bought it from that was trying to pull one over. They very well may not have known it was restored. There's, comics swap hands all the time, right? And not everyone takes the time to sit and look for those sort of things. And a lot of times restoration's hard to see. And you don't really necessarily think of it because either you don't see it, or you're new to the hobby maybe and don't know it's a thing you have to look out for, or you subconsciously suppress it because you don't want it to be. I don't know. But especially when it comes to these high-end books, always make sure to do your research on the book once you have it in hand to see if it is in fact restored. Because if it is, you want to go back to the seller. And again, they may not have done it on purpose. But if you do get sold a restored book and it was advertised as not restored, then there definitely should be some recompensation that happens there. But that's it. That's all I really had to talk about. It's a great book to have. I thought it'd be fun to do a video on it no matter what. But this gave a good opportunity to do a little bit of education as well. The owner of this book, again, when I come back and say, yeah, I'm pretty sure it's trimmed, it's not going to be a huge surprise to them. They already suspected it. They're still wanting to have it clean, pressed, and graded, because even a restored copy of this, it's definitely worth investing in. If you have it, the investment of the clean, the press, and the grade, 100%, it's worth it. So doing it anyway. We'll find out officially if this is going to CGC. They wanted to send to CGC what they come back with on it, but I'm pretty sure it's going to get that restored label. But anyway, that's it. Like, comment, subscribe. Let me know any sort of experiences you've had with restored books, or finding books have been restored sort of after the fact, and how that ended up being resolved. I'm curious to know. So do all that stuff. Have a great day, and don't forget to make yours Titan. Bye. This video was brought to you by Titan Comic Pressing. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Titan Comic Pressing LLC.